Hi there, another World Cup Sportingbet video for you as we count down to the start of the tournament in Brazil on June the 12th. We've got a great promotion running just now on the website. Take a look at it. We're offering you up to £100,000 if you manage to pick the 1-2 in the correct order in all 8 groups. Pretty exciting stuff. Mark O'Hare is my colleague here at Sportingbet. He's looking at all the 8 groups with me. Group G now, Mark. This is a really very attractive group, you'd have to say. Headed by Germany, Mark, at 1-2, and this German side looks pretty sensational. It looks great, but you know what worries me? You can dismiss it all you want. They haven't won a major trophy since 1996. We all say they won 2 years ago. They didn't win 2 years ago. Does that bother you as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Their team obviously will have grown from that experience, but I think it's 4 semi-finals now in the last 4 major tournaments, and no triumph, of course. But they have been ruthlessly efficient. Since 1986, they've lost just 1 group game in the World Cup. Wow. That was Serbia 4 years ago. Bit of a surprise if you think about it. Yeah. They've also topped their group in the last 6 World Cups. The repeat, as you say, just 1-2. They should do it. They're very well prepared. They went out to Brazil and actually built their own training camp. That's how serious they are about this World Cup. Probably the most talented group since 1974, the Germans reckon. They waltzed through qualifying, scoring 36 goals in 9 of those 10 games. They scored at least 3 goals, very impressive statistics. A few question marks over Jogi Löw's first 11. Who's he going to pick? Is Klose going to be in? He's 36 now, he struggled with fitness. Will he play a false 9 and maybe pack the midfield of that galaxy of options he seems to have in the creative areas? Defence is a big concern. They kept 5 clean sheets in qualifying, but 2 of those came against the Faroes. Sweden scored 7 goals against them in 2 games. They only kept 1 clean sheet in 5 European games in the Championships 2 years ago. Conceded at least 3 goals in 3 of 8 games recently. Well, they've only lost 1 game since August 2012, only failed to net twice since the last World Cup. There's so many good stats you can find about the Germans. 86% of the population reckon they'll at least make the semis again. That's 11-10. They faced Portugal first, and they've won the last 7 tournament openers, which is really encouraging. 9-10 on them to pick up over 6.5 points for me is probably the best bet here. 11-4 they win all 3 group games. I'm sure that will appeal to some.
Yeah, absolutely. Next in the group, Portugal have been handed a really tough draw here, 5-2 to win Group G with Sportingbet. Portugal, you think back, they struggled in the 1980s a lot of the time, they struggled in the 1990s, but in the 21st century they've been fantastic, and they dominate this competition with the best player in the world, Cristiano Ronaldo.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about Portugal personally, through the late 90s through to the noughties, they've been quite a sexy team. Not so much this time around with Paulo Bento. Of course they've got Ronaldo, but they're a very close-knit squad, very experienced now as well, of course. They all know their jobs. If you're being really harsh, there's probably 1 big star. The rest of them basically work so hard for that 1 star. Very hard-working team. Stuttered a little bit in qualifying as well. Failed to beat Israel home and away. Held by Northern Ireland as well. Tend to struggle against teams who sit back and defend. I don't think they'll have that much problem in this group, because I think all 4 teams will go and have a go. Russia were the only team to actually beat them, and Ronaldo dragged them through against Sweden in the playoff in a sensational performance. They still lack that age-old problem of a true goal scorer, centre forward, but you look across the team, they've got a good spine: Carvalho, Moutinho, Contral, Pepe. Don't forget, 2 years ago in the Euros, they took Spain to penalties. That's how close they came. They've reached the semi-finals in 4 of the last 8 major tournaments. To do the same again, it's 5-1. I think that's a big price. They've not been beaten by 2 or more goals since 2008. They'll be backed by the Brazilian public as well, because they've got that connection there. They're 3-10 to qualify, which they should do without any problems with that at all. 33-1 outright. I mean, that appeals to me. So does the 5-2. They win the group. That kind of revolves around goal difference, I think. But they should absolutely destroy this. 19-20 to collect over 4.5 points. They should easily do that, shouldn't they?
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah, Mark, very effusive over Portugal. I wonder what he thinks about Ghana. Of course, you remember Ghana 4 years ago. that tragic tale, if you like, knocked out in the quarter-finals by a very naughty Luis Suarez in Uruguay as they brought them down in the quarter-finals. Asamoah Gyan missing that last-minute penalty. Tragic stuff. Anyway, how will they get on in 2014? Your thoughts?
I doubt Ghana a little bit, to be honest. It's much the same squad. There's huge self-belief around that squad as well. Their coach Kwesi Appiah reckons they could become the first African team to reach the semi-finals. A bit of delusion there, I think. The team, well, he lacks experience. It's his first senior job. He was a big surprise to take the job originally, and they really do struggle against the top nations as well. I think their key players aren't in form as well. They failed to win in 9 matches against non-African sides since the last World Cup. It was their best ever qualifying campaign, it must be said. They top scored in the African region with 25. Gyan scored 7 of those. They won 5 of their 6 games. Thrashed Egypt 7-3 in the playoffs as well. I saw the second leg, they were absolutely outstanding, but they really underperformed in the 2 African nations most recently. The defence is quite wobbly. There's a splattering of talent around midfield with Kevin Prince Boateng, Christian Atsu, Asamoah Montari, some decent names there, but going forward they're a little bit predictable. Need a little bit more physical conditioning as well, apparently, according to the Ghanaian supporters, and a little bit more tactical discipline as well, given a very tough draw. So you've got to, as you can see in the prices, they're 1-4 not to qualify, 4-7 to get over 2.5 points. That doesn't appeal either, because they could and should beat the US, but 6-4 and them not winning a game does appeal, because they could easily just take a point off USA and get beaten fairly reasonably by Germany and Portugal. Yeah,
well, you seem pretty down in the USA. They're the 4th and final team to look at now in Group G. I think a nation that have done quite well in recent World Cups, and same with the debut, I think, back in 1990, well, in recent times, under the tutelage of Jurgen Klinsmann, of course, this time round. Why are you so down on them?
They're just not a very good team anymore, and Jurgen Klinsmann's part of that as well. You look at their qualifying campaign and people will say, yeah, they've done pretty well. 11 wins from 16, they top scored, only failed to score once in those games as well. But the mood is really despondent around the US team because of this World Cup draw. They're just hoping not to be embarrassed. I don't think they will be embarrassed, but I think the evens on them finishing bottom is more than fair. Klinsmann's outlined that game against Ghana, their opening game, as a World Cup final in his eyes. But they've been quite inept, quite laughable at times with their displays under him. Constant tinkering with selection and tactics. Left most followers of the US team quite confused about what he's trying to achieve. They've not been helped by the schedule either. Based in Sao Paulo in the south, and they travel north. Probably clocking up about 20 hours of airtime, going to humid climates in Manaus, Natal, Recife as well. The big name players have all gone back to the MLS because they can't cut it anymore, they're getting old. The core of Howard, Bradley, Jones, Dempsey, Donovan, they really need to perform, because the real concern over their defence, really inexperienced, quite slow as well and cumbersome. They're lacking flair going forward. Josie Altidore going to lead the line. He had a terrible season at Sunderland. So I think it's probably one of the worst USA squads for quite some time. 1-2 they failed to win a game reflects that. When you consider 1-2 to fail to win a game, you can get odds against them 21-20 to collect under 2.5 points.
Wow.
Bit of a discrepancy there, and that's the bet.
Wow. The worst US team I've seen in a long time. This man's got big statements, and I want to hear his biggest statement of all in this video, and that's whose 1-2 is in Group G. Of course, get the 1-2 right in all 8 groups, you could win up to £100,000. That's what we're offering here at Sportingbet. Mark, what would your Group G selection be?
I think Portugal can at least hold Germany in the first game, but I think the Germans will probably do it on goal difference. So quite boring, but Germany 1, Portugal 2.
And that was Group G.